What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Check us out online at Rich Q and Q YouTube channel, Rich Q and Q, hashtag BYP. Our guy, the prop professor, Sean, kind enough to join us on this edition from our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemensbridge Road. Check them out as well. Give them a call, 856-579-8250. Hey, Father's Day is right around the corner. They got wonderful golf equipment, new, used, some good stuff there. You want to swing by Monday to Friday, 10 to 7, Sunday, 10 to 5, Saturday, 10 to 6. They give you good value as well, a little bang for the buck when it comes to trading in your sports equipment, your jerseys, wherever you got stashed away. Definitely give them a call. In-store shopping pickup as well. All right, prop. So we ripped through the NBA Finals. You and I thought maybe 6. It reminded me of the 99 Knicks and the Spurs. The Knicks were able to get 1. They lost in 5. Miami, you mentioned it. We were all over that Denver team. You kept hammering home the point. Tired team. And think about this. They were up 3-0 against the Boston Celtics. Their next 9 games following that, 2-7. So that was a tired Heat team, was it not?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of kept hammering down about everybody's kind of tired at this time, how long the season is. Unless you can kind of quantify how you can, who's less tired, it becomes just kind of a narrative. But it's a cool narrative because it's something it's kind of, it's almost like people forget the expanded playoffs, how tired people are. And you see some of the old heads are like, oh, there was never load management before. It's true. But, careers were, they were a little bit shorter. You don't see 38-year-old guys getting 40 and 10 like LeBron. So, but Jimmy Butler's taking a lot of heat for basically hitting a wall, and I think it just came down to he was more tired than the others, and the better team won also, I think we mentioned here, there's no moral victories. If there ever was a moral victory for a team, this was it, because no matter what, the Heat getting swept here, look how far they went with, they were almost out in the playing game.
Yeah.
They were down 3 to the Bulls with, I think, 2 minutes left or 3 minutes left. They could have been out of that playing game. And I think that's the good thing about the NBA. The bad thing is the fatigue factor. And what we're going to see more next year, you're going to see a lot more guys playing 50 games, 55 games. It's just what you're going to see, and that's the new NBA, and just get used to it.
Yeah, preserving them for the playoffs. We've seen it. We saw it for years. We saw it with Pop and the Spurs many moons ago. It's funny, too, because the Monday morning quarterback, and they don't even let Denver have the parade yet, when all of a sudden, they got to be a dynasty or they're a fraud, they're a fluke. I mean, look, they were the better team. And that's just the bottom line. They got the better players. You look at that turnover by Butler late. That's a microcosm of Miami. No one came to the ball to try to rescue and help him out, right? But, you look at that Western Conference, certainly Denver should be the odds-on favor, right? Golden State's getting older. And this is just good to talk about on this episode because it just came down yesterday. Morant only gets tagged with 25 games, which is an absolute joke. But if it was 40 plus, maybe I'd steer a little clear away from the Grizz. Then you've got the Clippers, you've got the Lakers, you've got, Golden State, Phoenix. I still don't trust them. So I would say right now, sure, I have no problem looking at Denver for an odds-on favorite to at least come out of the Western Conference next year.
The last 5 years, 5 different winners, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So this tells you something. Again, it could just be a narrative, or it could be the new NBA. The NBA, like the NFL, they want parity. They don't want dynasties anymore. They don't want super teams, although they're trying to do super teams again. Yes. But it's good for, well, Is it good for the league to have everybody win every once in a while? I'm not sure. When I was younger, I used to. When we were both really young, there was a lot of dynasties, and it was almost like you had,
Lakers
one
and
or two
Celtics
super teams. Yeah, you had super
every
teams.
year.
Yeah, you had middle teams that were fun to watch, like the old Nuggets with
Yep.
Alex English and those guys, and you knew they were never going to win.
Right.
And that actually even flowed into the Kevin Garnett Timberwolves, where I think they made the finals in one year against the dominant Lakers, and you just knew the Lakers were going to win that series. I think it went 6, and Garnett did everything but, sell beer, and they still couldn't, they just couldn't win. So was that better for the NBA? I think they like this more. I think if you're a fan of, say, the Nuggets, or if you're a fan of the Kings, now you say, you know what, I have a shot to win.
Yeah.
And I would not be against saying, you know what, that is good for the league. Denver was the 1 seed. Now, I don't know why anybody's saying this was a fluke or whatever.
Because of who
I
they
see
went
a ton
through.
of that on Twitter.
Because who they went through, but you can't control. I use the analogy. Well, wait a second.
Can't control that. Yeah.
The Eagles waxed the Giants, and then they knocked out every quarterback under the sun for San Francisco. So are we looking at their run through the NFC and to the Super Bowl any less? No, we're not. You beat who's in front of you, period.
The Eagles had a little bit of an easier path than they should have had. If the Giants lose to the Vikings, they placed San Fran a week earlier. But you can't hold that team to that standard. Maybe if they're trying to do the context of, okay, well, how good is that team compared to other champions? Well, you don't know. Last 5 years, 5 teams have won. If Denver comes back next year and gets to the finals and loses in 7 or something, we'll look back 10 years and say, that was a really good Nugget team. They come back next year and lose in the first round, then I can see this takes time, but people have to fill the airways up. And it's part of the reason why we're doing this, because nobody fills the airways up better than us. Really, if you want to bring up narratives, I'll narrative you to death
for
the next.
Right.
I'll go back 30 years. Hey, listen, you want to talk about a phony champion and what I look at the team. There was somebody posted something on social media, but who had the best run in sports that didn't win? There was tons of fun ones, and locally, I still get aggravated thinking of the 2011 Phillies. Are you going to get on LaRusso for having an easy path? I mean, they played Milwaukee. They beat the top team, Phillies. They played Milwaukee, and then they played Texas. I mean, if the Phillies get by the Cardinals in that, they would have been like 4-1 over Milwaukee, and it would have been at least 3-1 over Texas. So, you're talking about the easy path or a team, when the top teams lose. It wasn't due from an injury. Remember years ago, the Phillies beat the Sixers as an 8 seed beat the Bulls.
Yep. Because Derrick Rose. Because
Derrick Rose got hurt. Didn't somebody else get hurt too? Somebody else was hurt also, but I know it was Rose.
Was Noah hurt? Joakim Noah?
I don't think Noah played, or he played sparing. Just off the top of my head.
But you lose an MVP.
If it's by injury, yeah. And then the Heat. The Heat lost to the Knicks.
Yep.
When they made that run, but they only lost because of that fight. That's the Van Gundy ran out in game 6. And everybody got on Mourning. If Mourning says, hey, I'm not touching anybody, Mourning plays in game 7 and they win that.
Yeah.
Or they have a much better shot. So if you're not bringing injuries into effect, or as a reason, you can't really fault the Nuggets run. I mean, the Heat played really well, and they matched up well against the Celtics, and they forced the Celtics into bad decisions. They didn't play as a team, and that seems like a cliche, but they didn't. They did a lot of one-on-one stuff. And listen, the Celtics, we said it a couple of weeks ago. Sixers are probably 3 shots, 3 Danny Green or Curry's brother type shots of being,
The other
winning game 6.
Yeah.
And then you're not even talking about any of this. So you can't blame the Nuggets. They were
Nope.
the 1 seed. They played well. They won. Don't talk about dynasty until we see what they do next year.
Exactly. Let the ink dry, so to speak. Let them have the parade and see how it plays out. All right. I know we're going to get into some baseball, but I want to switch gears a little bit to the NFL and the story of Isaiah Rodgers being investigated by the NFL. Gambling, whatnot, gambling on games, apologized, took accountability. I mean, look, this is not Art Schlichter, right, from the jailhouse payphone, but we saw this last year with Ridley, and again, this is what happens. Not even the old, well, this is what happens when you stick a team in Vegas. Hey, man, if he in some way, shape, or form had a hand in the outcome of these games, you would know, because you would see a major line movement with the books in Vegas. If it's, you would see it half a point, and if it moves 3.5 plus, that's typically because the quarterback's out, right? Or the star running back or wide receiver. In this situation, where do you kind of draw that line where, well, you know what, the NFL, you made your bed, now you got to lie in it? And take it a step further, when you look at a player or players, what's the incentive? Because you're going to get caught if there's tons, millions and millions of dollars on these games.
You go around the people that don't know what I know, what we know for years and years, even before the fall of PASPA legalization, is very difficult to get down. There's limits. So what are you going to, if say hypothetically we knew, game 1 that Kansas City was going to lose their first game
against the Lions. Yeah.
Against the Lions, what would we do? Like, how much could you get down? We could play Lions money line for $1 million. It's a lot. I mean, even then, like, you can't, you can't just roll up with $1 million. They're going to take your ID. You're not even going to get that. They're not going to give you that odds. You're already suspicious if you got $1 million cash. How you walking around? You know what I mean? You can't get NFL. Sides, they'll take the biggest limits, but all these things are gauged. Offshore is in connection with stateside. Bookies in Jersey talk to bookies in Vegas. I mean, it's more detailed than what I'm saying, but the point being is that there's charting of a lot of things. How about a casino? If you're in the casino, there's cameras all over the place. What are you going to wear a mask? You can't. They know who you are.
And they won't take in New Jersey. I can tell you right now, some of these books have limits. You want to bet on March Madness, and you walk up $50,000, they might not take that action.
Yeah, and one of the funniest things I saw during the New Jersey's case against the leagues was they had Al Leiter was representing Major League Baseball compliance or some crappy bullshit thing that they had going on, and Al Leiter was involved. And Al Leiter thought for some reason that you'd be able to bet on each pitch. And he goes, what's to stop somebody from going up to one of the casinos in, North Jersey and betting, 50,000 that the next pitch would be a ball. All this, it became laughable in the gambling community. We were like, man, somebody just pull Al Leiter out of this meeting and talk to him, because he obviously never tried to make a bet
in his life.
You can't know. You think, and then even Mark Cuban came out around that time thinking that people were going to bet college games or Little League World Series games for 10 grand. It just you could tell people who've never tried to make a bet, and the limits exist, and limits exist for multiple reasons, and one of the reasons is for compliance. sure, a casino might say, hold on, let me check to see if your 300-hour totals bet is good for their company. But, it frustrates the regular bettor for that, because I'm all for posted limits. Have the posted, have it 500, have it 1,000 aside, and adhere to it. If you want to place more, then the guy can say, hey, let me see if I can improve it.
Sure.
But all of this is data that tracks all of this stuff. And, the NFL is a security team. A lot of people either don't know this or they don't dig into this. A lot of those guys are ex-cops, retired guys. They have a full-on security team for years. And this was even before PASPA, to make sure, Joe Montana's cousin doesn't, blow up and somehow somebody's be able to take 20 grand on it. Now that would never happen again, because the money isn't correct, but it's also an alignment with, the referees.
Yep.
Because the referees were making X amount. Well, who's to say, they're not going to try to get 50,000 down on one side or whatever. The whole thing is, and plus it's a federal law. They throw you in jail. One of the reasons Donaghy didn't admit that he threw games, he said he just used his best guess and bet on games that he reffed.
Right.
And didn't say that he made the outcome. He just called it as it was.
You know what? Potato, right? It's semantics.
Well, he never admitted to that,
Right,
because
right.
he'd still be in jail.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a federal offense. I
Yeah.
mean, they locked up the guys from Boston College years ago.
course.
They threw a book at the
Point
guy.
shading.
They threw a book at the guy who admitted it, and the guy who didn't admit it didn't get the book thrown. So it's a big offense. So there's number one, you can't do it. It's too difficult to get what you need to get down on it. And even in large markets, and number two, it's just not worth it. So what I think what he was doing in Indianapolis, he was betting with friends. You notice they didn't say the amounts, because they don't want to come out that he's betting, 100 hours a game or 500 hours a game or 50 hours a game or whatever. What I'm curious about is if you're with a group of friends, say it's me, you, and one of the guys happens to play in the NFL, and you got on your phone and bet a few games, and he's there. Is he going to get in trouble? You have to tell him to leave. You know what I mean? I'm not sure.
That's the other thing. Like, who's to say?
Is he betting the game? They're very loose on the details are coming, or else I missed them. Correct.
Like Ridley openly admitted, right? Whether it's another sport or not.
And that wasn't NFL, which I thought they.
Exactly.
I don't know how you feel about it. I thought that they gave him like
it was horrible.
The Paul Hornig deal, where they gave him a whole year. And I thought, well, the guy's betting on basketball. Give him 4 games, and then say, listen, now don't be in the room. And so again, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're right. This is not Alex Karras and Paul Hornig, 100%, right? And remember too, many moons ago, back in the day, you're laying 25-50 on a game in the 60s. That raises major eyebrows. But here's the thing. You're phoning it in, you're writing it down. It's a friend of a friend of a friend who's talking to, Fat Tony in the Bronx somewhere, right? Or somewhere out west. Totally different animal. But to your point, and it's a really good point you bring up, who's to say, and I had this conversation a week ago with my NFL guy, Lloyd Vance, like, he's like, well, maybe there should be wiggle room with the NFL. Yeah, but how do you police it? Like, who's to say I can't say, okay, prop, go put this in for me, but you didn't get it from me? Like, the back channels, the paper trail. So the problem is the NFL opened up this can of worms. They opened up this can of worms by not only moving to Vegas, but getting in bed with every friggin' sports book and app in the world, by having pre and post and halftime shows and billboards and banners and lower thirds and graphics, and talking about, get in right now. The major networks, 67% think the Giants are going to win. What the hell do you think that is? That is gambling. That is betting. Period.
For Ridley, I think got really screwed, because I know you're not supposed to bet, but he might have been really seriously thinking, you know what? Wait a minute. I'm not betting on football. I get it. Like, well, he needs to be real responsible, but I just hitting him with a year with that, when the NFL has been nothing but gigantic hypocrites. I hammered them. I hammered Adam Silver when he wrote that op-ed in the New York, I believe, the Times. And everybody gave him credit for it. Wow, he was in the middle of suing New Jersey. I said he wants both sides. He's saying here's what we would do. We need to embrace sports betting if it becomes legal. While he had his own lawyers suing New Jersey. So I was saying, well, wait a minute. If he really cared about that, he would have pulled the NBA out of that.
Oh yeah.
And he would have said, you know what, we're going to work with moving forward. The thing was they didn't think they were going to lose the leagues.
Right.
And I have tons of tweets from that time. I was like, anybody want to take any action on that PASPA falls? And some gambling writers were saying, it's a dog. I said, it's falling. It's falling. It just, the writing was on the wall. And of course, I'm being Monday morning quick, but I just felt it was going to fall. It should have never existed this long. The initial carve out for PASPA was when Christie Todd Whitman had just become governor, and Atlantic City had a monopoly basically on casinos, and they said, hey, you can also be part of PASPA. It'll just be Atlantic City and Las Vegas. That's it for sports betting. Or I'm sorry, Nevada and Atlantic City. It wasn't going to be Jersey. And it became a political issue. So they said, no, we don't even have to vote on that. We don't need it because we already have the casino gambling. Right. And, they were going to bring up that topic during years. So my whole thing was they should go back to that initial thing, have it be two places, because what ended up happening? New Jersey sued for everybody.
Yeah. Yep.
And me and you fit the bill. We pay Jersey taxes.
Yep.
We paid for everybody to get this. So the silver thing. So I said, I went through this long thing on Twitter and said, you know what? Bottom line is, Silver owes me a couple tickets. I want my money back, but I'll take it in tickets or something from the NBA or the NFL. But it goes back to they sued for it. And then they're completely in bed, and then they want to hammer their players.
You can't. It's beyond a contradiction.
And you can't bet on football. You can't bet on NFL. You should inherently know that. But I mean,
but you're still.
Can you bet $100 bet on? Can you bet 100? Wait a minute. Can you go to the track?
Well, that's yet to be seen. I mean, what if what if someone has a video camera right now and you want to go and bet on the Belmont or the Preakness or the Kentucky Derby?
I don't know if that's exempt.
How much do you think Paul Hornung allegedly bet on football games? Take a stab.
Well, they didn't bet. He didn't bet against the Packers, or he never would have played against.
No, but he confessed to betting on games per game.
Sure.
How much do you think?
Well, it was probably, firing in a few hundred, who knows, a few thousand, maybe back then.
No, 100%, which 100 to 500, which is
not a lot. That was back when guys had to get part-time jobs.
And that's my whole point. That's like 5,000 by today's standard, right? But again, back in the day, it violated your NFL contract. Now it's basically a situation where, he got caught because I believe, from what I recall in the read, was the paper trail, so to speak. And he hated the ruling, but was very contrite and understood the ruling. Now, the players, you can't do it without getting caught, is my point. You can't, because of this.
Yeah, there's tracking everything. There's no incentive.
Nope.
Like, where do you go? Sometimes I get in arguments with Twitter all the time. There's no incentive. Oh, what about the refs? There's none. There's just no incentive, and there's too much tracking. You just can't.
And too much at stake.
Can't get it in. If anybody ever gets a chance to read, I think his last name is Siegel. He was the Arizona State kid who was booking on Arizona State's campus. He was booking and betting, and two of the basketball players were betting football with him and got buried. And he owed, one of the hoops players owed him. I can't remember his name, but he was good. He was first or second team All Pac-10 early 90s, and he was down like $8-9 grand. And he's like, hey, he was like, well, how can we do this? He was like, you know what? Why don't you have a good team this year? Why don't when you play Washington State or one of these crappy teams, you just, they'd be laying 14 or 30. You don't have to blow the game, just win by 8. And if you look at the book, and I remember when that happened. This is how far back I go. I mean, betting it was the early 90s. It was 94, I believe, and I remember I was obsessed with it because of all the things that they did, because they had an article in the New York Times about it, and it was a multiple part. And what it was is, they went to the casino, and this is before. This is why you don't need compliance. The casinos already have this,
right?
And there's supposed to be X amount of volume on average of a Pac-10 midweek game, and the books knew talk to each other. It's only Nevada, but doesn't matter if you're betting it underground. It would go somewhere. People talk. Oh, it's a hot game. It's a Billy Waters game or whatever, and they tracked it, and the game went in a circle, went from 14 to 10 in a circle.
Wow.
In a circle, which was limited, which means if you called up Tony Baroni or whoever you want to call up for your $500 limit, he was like, hey, it's in a circle. Why? They didn't know. They didn't give a shit because they were getting phone lines from Vegas. They're like, oh, I don't know. Okay. And then it went from 6, then they took it off the board.
Yeah, well, that's your red flag.
And like you said, it only happened if injuries. Early 90s, where Michigan State's entire team got injured or somebody was sick and all. And the whole thing came off the board. Nobody knew why, because you don't have the internet now. But so it was either injuries or, God forbid, what really was going on. Somebody had. Do you know they went in halftime of that game? That's how quickly it worked. They went in halftime and they said, listen, this is what's going on. And they got nervous and they went back out and they crushed.
Wow.
I think it's Washington. They went back out and crushed Washington State the second half. This is how quick. This is before you need compliance teams or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Integrity team. I'm sorry. Integrity team. We need integrity fees. No, you didn't. You already have that. So that's the long and short of it. I don't know, to the original point. I hope more comes out about that, because I don't know, again, if he was just in the room, if it was actually his bets. I think you're going to see more of this.
100% agree.
Here's what's really going to have a problem. Aaron Rodgers goes next year and he's sitting center court at Wimbledon with the actor's girlfriend or whatever, they're hanging out, and they find out that he fired $1,000 on Djokovic.
But here's the thing: what do players do?
Or something.
What do they do on planes? They play cards. While they're playing cards, what do? They freaking gamble like
crazy.
But that's the whole point. Like, you cannot. You're trying to control it the way you want to control it, but yet it's so evident that I'm picking and choosing when I want to drop the hammer. And that's what I have a problem with. And again, the old heads, they knew this back in the day. The Jimmy the Greeks of the world knew it, when they would never basically say the line, and they would say, I think the Giants are a touchdown better. Wink, wink. You've got Michaels, a legend, Musburger, legendary guys we grew up watching. And that they throw in the little gambling tidbits here. Well, someone's going to be ticked off about this. I mean,
well, now they're allowed to say it. Now they can. Now
but that's my whole point. Then why shouldn't the players be? If you're allowed, if you're allowed to say it, and you've got prominent broadcasters on national broadcast in front of hundreds of millions of people sprouting it out, then guess what? If the player wants to friggin' bet on another sport, let them bet on another sport. You just can't bet your sport.
It's a problem, and I'm interested to see what they do moving forward. They're making a lot of money. The NFL makes a lot of money. The NBA makes a lot of money, and I'm curious to see what the punishment's going to be for this player. But I'm more interested to see if somebody really prominent comes out. What if they find out Mahomes
Oh,
you
that
know,
sinks.
was in
That
the
sinks the
room
league.
when it was, but you know, were they going to suspend them for a year? Like it's just Mahomes is maybe an extreme example. What if it's somebody that's, you know, that's highly prominent that bet on hockey or something? Are they going to suspend them for the year? You're going to see very selective, I think, enforcement of a lot of this.
Unbelievable. All right. I know I got you for a couple more minutes. How about your Oakland Athletics, right? And baseball, we
Yeah.
always talk about as soon as they're making this little run, I was like, let me throw a couple shekels, and then all of a sudden the 7-game winning streak gets snapped. But this is baseball, man. You and I both know even horrible teams will have a stretch during a baseball season where they'll win 3, 4, 5 games in a row. We've seen it over and over and over. I mean, look, right now, I would ask you, look at Kansas City. They've lost 10 in a row.
Yeah, Kansas City's awful, but you know, you're not laying actually the premium against the Royals like you were against Oakland. Premium meaning you really had to dig deep into one's own numbers to figure out if, well, I don't know, I'm laying 240, you know, with you know, my number 2 pitcher against, you know, whoever Oakland is throwing. And you know, is that true? Should that true line, or the line I think should that be 280? So I'm not against. A lot of people are against the idea of, you know, well, you don't want to. There's no reason to lay 3-1. Sure, there is. If the line should be 4-1, you should have no problem laying 3-1. But that's kind of the situation we were in with Oakland. Early on, they were setting the line too low. I was playing a lot against Oakland, but I realized, you know, at one point you can kind of tell, is the market going to hammer you for trying to get free money? Or Oakland starts winning a little bit. And I kind of noticed it when Oakland went into Milwaukee and Milwaukee's line went down. And in other words,
they swept them.
Marcus basically telling you Milwaukee and it isn't any good either. Yeah, they shouldn't be laying 170 or 180. We kind of touched on it. They speak these equally poor teams. Should probably not be laying that. And then, you know, Oakland went on the run. Of course, they win the first 2 games against Tampa. I had Tampa in game 1, so I lose. And then the next day you were laying, I think, 240 or 250 roughly, and that loses. Tampa wins game 3, but if you're trying to do a straight fade, you're getting your rear end handed to you. Now, I thought last night's line, Phillies, was too low. I didn't care who the Phillies were throwing out there. They should have been around 140 or so.
That's not true. You would have cared if it was Nola.
That's right. Yeah. Well, they would have. You know what? I've had to take a look at Oakland because I think they're overvalued. Although to shut us up, Noah's actually pitched pretty well. Yeah. But you know, I got the Phillies last night at 124, I think, or 124, 126, and you know, the first pitch.
Schwarber, yeah, they won 6-1. Walker pitched well last night.
Yeah, he pitched well, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Phillies win the first 2 at least. It's tough to win. It's tough for historically for non-elite teams to sweep anybody in Major League Baseball. What I mean by that is whatever your criteria is of elite, you can go back, I don't know, 20 years. You kind of know who's elite once you get through 50 games.
Yeah.
We're now around 70. So, you know, back when the Arizona had Schilling and Johnson and the Yankees were right there, and the Red Sox were right there.
2001 Mariner.
You had a few pretenders that came on late, not counting them. So you basically had 2 or 3 teams you knew were elite, you know, and then you can run through the Phillies dynasty, whatever, when they were you know, uber competitive. Whatever your criteria is, you had 2, 3, maybe 4 teams. And those are the teams that end up, you know, with 98 wins, 96 wins, whatever. You go back and look, those are the kinds of teams that go into Colorado and win 3 in a row. They go into whoever's last, Detroit Tigers, when they start, they crush them 3 in a row. But all these middle tier teams, it's just historically, we throw them all in a pot. They don't sweep on the road. And I think that has a lot to do with the teams we think are really, really bad in each individual season are not so bad that they're going to lose at home consecutive games to other middle tier teams.
That's a fair point. We saw it a couple years ago when Baltimore was really bad, but yet they also, I think, went on a 7, 8, 9 game winning streak a couple of years ago when they were a really bad team. And we saw it obviously this year with Oakland. Now, I guess it begs the question, can you see Kansas City that's dropped 10 in a row? Can you see them? I mean, what,
you're going to make money betting against them. I'm not for straight fades because your bankroll could swoop. If you bet against Oakland this whole time, you made money, and then you lost 7 in a row. You lost, you didn't lose your entire bankroll. But, you're basically playing a Martin game. You're like, all right, play black again, double up. You don't really want to bet baseball that way. You want to keep your eye on who's historically bad,
right?
Who may be historically bad, and then who's just bad. Oakland, it turns out, might not lose 130 games, but if they lose 115,
you're going to be profitable.
You can squeeze out a little bit of profit in certain spots against them, and it might be in their home spots. I just feel that the Phillies aren't elite enough yet that they're going to win all 3 games here, but they can win 2 or 3. Again, I don't know. They posted the matchup. And they even posted the number tomorrow, but I didn't look at it because I was looking at a few other things. I was looking at our friends. It looks like they're really kind of sticking it to us through 70 games. The Miami Marlins, who are, I think they're plus, I don't know what their ROI is, but they're plus about 10 units if you've played them this year. And the numbers kind of I use, they don't look like a team to me that are going to run away and win 90 games,
right,
and beat the elite teams, but they are beating up all the bad teams on the road. And to their credit, I don't think they score enough. And to me, if you don't score, I mean, you could give up 3.8 runs a game. If you're scoring 3.1, you're not going to win that many.
No,
but you will beat the bad teams. So I am looking for them to dump a little bit, but they've kind of stuck it to us a little bit. I'd be having a really good baseball season if it wasn't against Miami. This is where something, again, you can't have a narrative. You got to go with what you see and make these teams all look like widgets and don't fall in love and have a thing.
Right.
I say that while I have a Phillies jacket on, but this is only for play. I will bet against the Phillies as I did all in May at any given stretch.
But by the way, as we close, you got the Phillies jacket on. We talking about the A's. All right, looks like the stadium deal. They're trying to get legislative approval in Nevada. So now we're going to potentially stick a baseball team in Nevada.
I don't like it. I don't know. I kind of peripherally followed it because I knew the A's were having, they were drawing,
horrible,
1,000 people or what. They're dead. They're a dead team. They can't play there next year because if they sign the deal. But then, something interesting happened. They started winning a couple of games, and then the fans did the reverse boycott. So I started paying attention a little bit. I said, "Hey, look how much fun this is!" Because it looks like something that would happen in Philly. This shows that the A's fans really have a little bit of moxie to them, because a reverse boycott is definitely something that Philly would do. They hold signs up.
That's a great baseball franchise, man. That's a great. It
is, and isn't like they haven't been, they made the play-in game, I think, in 2019 and 2020. I think 2018, somebody good pitched for him. I want to say last year, but I'm not positive if it was his second year. I got to look, but remember they lost a tough playing game, like in extra innings,
Well,
And
that's
I
when
thought
everyone
if
was arguing, win your division, win your
I think it was
division.
2018. I got to look again, it's on the top of my head, but it's within the. And they lose the playing game. I really felt if they got into past the playing game, they could win. They could have won a short series and made some news because there was no overpowering team.
97 wins that year. They lost to the Yankees in that wild card.
Was it 8? What year?
7-2.
What was the playing game that they lost in extra innings? It was like 10-9 or 11-10 or something. I think they lost to Tampa. If I'm not mistaken, it was against Tampa. But again, I'm guessing. I could cheat and look it up, but I'm not going to.
So if they lost the wild card game 1-0, isn't that your playing game?
Yeah.
The next year, 2019, they lost to Tampa.
What was the score?
5-1. Morton pitched.
So maybe I'm talking about the 1-0 game. Why did I think it was a lot of runs?
Morton pitched, and then the following.
It was a close game.
Year,
they lost. I remember they lost a close playing game.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking this team, how they were constructed. They, obviously the goal was to get in to the playoffs, and anything can happen. And people point to, oh well, Oakland's never won anything playoffs, and it's. The sample size is too small. I don't think it's indicative of that.
I found the game for you. 2014 against the Royals, 9-8.
Wow, I conflated that with 2017. But listen, that team wasn't bad.
Right church, wrong pew.
That's true. The 14 team was good. So
yeah,
my overall point, it isn't like they haven't been
horrible.
Competitive.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the Moneyball story and all that. And it went from being they were underrated to they were overrated and all that. But the fans were passionate. But I started throwing stuff out that, hey, come back to Philly and play where you were the Philadelphia A's. The Delaware Valley metro market is almost 7 million people.
Stay and get rid of the Blue Rocks? You want to get rid of the Blue Rocks?
Well, somebody asked me, so where would they play? On the stadium. I said, stick them right where the Blue Rocks are. Who cares?
Raleigh Stadium.
You can get there for 95. You're going to tell me people wouldn't go to see the A's there? 100% they would go.
Nice little stadium.
Nice who would block it? The Phillies owners would block it. But listen, there's enough people that will go. And when the A's weren't any good, or when they had a losing streak, people like to go to the Phillies game. Baseball games. People like to go to baseball games.
100%.
There was another thing on Twitter said, "Oh, it's so expensive to go to the game. It costs you $500." No, there isn't. You can Uber you can park a Chicken Pizza and Uber to the game.
Yeah.
And get people forget. You can bring food into the stadium. They killed that rule. They had it for like a half a minute, and people complain.
Oh, yeah. You can bring it at the vet.
You can bring if you bring your kids, you can bring hoagies from Primo or wherever you want to go and get it. You can do it a little bit inexpensively. It's not going to cost you $4 or $5. So my overall point was that if they somehow were able to put the A's there, well, I was completely just throwing it out, pipe dreaming. And then I started thinking, well, what the hell are they going to Vegas for? So I started looking up Vegas' metro is like 2 million people. There's no
draw out there. None.
There's no draw. So because somebody's building a stadium, well, here's where I started reading about it. Here's where it completely doesn't make sense. Why would the owners vote for this when if you put an expansion team in Vegas, any expansion team has to pay an expansion cost?
Yeah.
It's almost $1 billion. That money goes to the owners. They divide it by 30.
Yep.
You can use it to do whatever you want with it. There's no stipulation on what you have to use that for. It's cash. The NFL has some kind of similar to when somebody gets in, they got to pay them. An owner thing. You can use it for whatever you want. So why would 23 to 30 you have to vote for this? Why would they vote for the transfer if they're going to lose? Is there something I'm missing that you're going to get? Because Vegas overall, why wouldn't they want an expansion? Why do they want the A's? As I said this, they asked Bryce Harper last night or during Phillies pregame because he grew up in Vegas, I think, right? Is he from Vegas? Is anybody really from Vegas? I don't know. I don't like Jimmy Kimmel's from Vegas. Is he? I don't know. Tarkanian wasn't even from Vegas.
Right.
Everybody kind of just went there for something and they stayed there.
Yeah, they stayed there. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's not like, I'm from Brooklyn. It's not like that kind of thing. But you know what I mean? So, but they asked him, and he said, "Why would they want their own team?
Yeah. Why are you going to take a team?
And I feel like Nashville wants their own team. So if Oakland can come back and just say anything and do anything with the Kents, I know they've dragged their feet. They've had plenty of opportunities, but I think you can do something in Oakland. I'll throw this also at you from something I read. One of these books that I read is from a while ago about Billy Kuhn. Billy Kuhn was the commissioner of baseball, and he was he was the commissioner of baseball during free agency.
Right.
Andy Messersmith took them to court, and it opened up, obviously free agency. So I think it was Marvin Miller who was their sports agent, and they kept going to court, and Miller kept winning, but even with that, Bowie Kuhn said the biggest mistake I made under commission was allowing a team to be across the bay from San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And I never really thought of it being East Coast. I never thought about how close they were. But then HBO did a documentary about the years of the Raiders and the A's. They were interviewing. Did you see that? Tom Hanks was one of the guys they interviewed. Yeah. Because Hanks had lived there during those years. And he said, I can't even put into words what that was like. Yeah. Because, and you know what, you think about it, that's before our time, but just before my time. I don't remember the A's winning. But the A's winning, and then Oakland being what they were, 70. That must have been an unbelievable thing. So, some of those people still live in that area, and they think of that very, I call it like East Coast-ish nostalgia. I'm for, if they can't come to Philly, I think Oakland should stay right where they're at. There he has it. He's fired up on this edition. He has the last word. Hey, don't forget. Oh, wait, let me throw a couple of games out for you. Go ahead. Got about 30 seconds. Fire off. Checking the big board. I'm not playing. What did I play today? I played the Phillies again, and unfortunately, the line's all the way up, like 180 or something. I got 167. It's a high price to play in the Phillies, but trying to get something that did not move ridiculously. I do like Tampa. If you can get even money or better with Tampa in San Diego, they won last night. Yep. Earlier this morning, I think there was plus 102s out. I'm not going to split hairs with the plus 102 or or even money. Even money's okay. Even minus 102 is okay. So I played Tampa, and we'll talk about NFL. Yes, next futures. Week. People are starting to talk about that, and I saw a couple. It's very early, but I saw a couple 7.5s floated out in the Patriots. And if I can get a 7.5, I'm playing over. Hopefully the juice isn't like, minus 180 or something. But that's it. We'll talk more about that. Absolutely. Absolutely. You got plenty of time for that Rays Pods at 7:15 first pitch. All right. Again, the prop always kind enough to join us from our wonderful friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemensburg Road, open 7 days a week. Follow my guy on Twitter at Professor Shine, and he loves to troll, and he's always kind enough to join us on this edition of BYP. We'll do it again next week, brother. Appreciate you. Take care.